Thanks. Okay, good evening everybody. Welcome back to some of you. Nice to see you, those that were unable yesterday, who made it today. So to start the evening off, do we have any apologies?
As I reported last night, Councillor Stockwell is unable to make it tonight because he's working, so again I've drawn the short straw. Councillor Crosby, Hannah Crosby, is also at work, can't get away. I'm glad these people are working to pay my pension. It's really is good news. We were supposed to be being joined by Councillor Carlid, but I don't see her at the moment, but she may make an appearance later.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Anyone else? Stephen?
Yeah, Councillor Woodhead is still in a recovery period, so I'm subbing for him.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, okay, so next up is our declarations of interest. Does anybody have your declarations of interest for tonight? No? Lovely. Item 3, considerations of call-ins. I assume we've had no call-ins between yesterday and today. You never know. You never know. Item 4 is Martin's lead-in with his business thing. All yours, mate.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just in case anybody was here last night and has since forgotten, and obviously for the benefit of others joining us this evening, this report, just a noting report to set out the performance management framework and you know, the process for business planning and budget setting. We're joined this evening by colleagues who have helped support the development of these business plans, which again make reference to the performance measures of performance and also key tasks and priorities for improvement in the year. Also throughout the report you'll find the financial estimates for the respective priority area, again revenue budgets included, capital programme where necessary, and then fees and charges for your consideration as well. So again, I suppose without any further ado we can move on to the next stage.
Thank you.
Happy to take any questions.
Okay, so nobody any questions on that part? No, maybe we haven't done that tonight. So agenda item 5 is the housing business plans and financial estimates 26-27. You're going to lead in on that, Martin, yes?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, so Appendix 1 brings in the housing business plan, and we're joined this evening by Rachel Shaw as Assistant Director of Housing, and also Darren Ibell as Assistant Director Asset Management and Development, who will talk us through the plan and obviously take any questions. Into Appendix 2A, just I think briefly, we bring in the housing budgets both for the general fund and also the HRA budget. Again, just as a quick summary, you know, the HRA, as you know, is a ring-fenced account. It relies on the income it generates from housing and garages and the like to cover all the costs that we have in terms of managing our housing stock, and balances are tight there. You know, you can see from the report, you know, we are you know, we're having to manage our resources carefully, but also on the back of that as well, you know, into Appendix 2B, you know, we have a really ambitious capital programme in terms of our housing compliance work, housing improvement work, and also housing delivery, which you can see presented in front of you, and also then a list of a review of fees and charges at Appendix C. But if I can bring in Rachel to start with, and also Darren, who can talk through the business plan. Okay, thank you.
All yours, Rachel.
Thank you. So firstly, to look at the performance indicators within the business plan, most of these have stayed the same as they have been for a number of years. Obviously, housing is a big theme and sort of wider than just our landlord services. So the critical success indicator in the business plan is actually more than you might see within some of the other business plans, because we pick up areas to planning, housing, rents, but also we include all of the big 6 compliance areas in there, because actually the way that we should be looking at those is we shouldn't be seeing any one of those more important than the other. So that's why actually within the critical success indicators there are, you know, quite a lot of the indicators are sort of determined as being CSIs. The other indicators within the plan are, say, ones that you will have seen before and that have been in previous years, except for there is a new indicator and rewording around empty homes this year, which is looking at sort of the cases in total, the number of them, and more sort of details about what's happened to them. So the team decided to measure that in a different way than they previously had, to be able to provide sort of more up to date information rather than just the figure at year end. And moving on to the actions within the business plan, you'll see there's a lot of implementing things that are already in place, and that's intentional. So we have a housing strategy, we have an asset management strategy, we have a homelessness strategy, we've got a housing delivery plan, and we've got the action plan that sits beneath our housing improvement board. And to make sure all those fit together and to make sure they fit in with the business plan refers to those action plans and those strategies, because actually if they're important things that we're going to be working on for the next year, they will already be sitting as an action within one of those plans. The actions within the business plan are quite sort of high level because they refer to those documents, but so that's intentional. It's been done that way to sort of make sure the monitoring is easier, and we've not got conflicting priorities with something being in the business plan that isn't within those other strategic documents. I don't know if there's anything particularly Dan wants to highlight at this stage.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Yeah, just a couple of points to add to what Rachel said. Obviously, we developed a brand new asset management strategy last year, as Rachel's mentioned, and also a housing delivery plan as well. And you'll note that we continue to perform well above our targets in terms of bringing new stock into the portfolio. Currently, in terms of getting ready for next year and meeting the requirements and the numbers next year, both to make sure that we not only net off any properties that are lost through the right to buy, but actually increase our housing portfolio. The pipeline we have, which is ready to go for Homes England funding round 4, which will come online at the end of the financial year. We're well placed to make a really good impact and bring in significant Homes England funding through that, which we've done previously in previous years, which will help support that programme. We've recently also just had a Homes England audit, which has given us a green light in terms of our delivery. So we're building on previous good work that's been done. That's really at this moment in time, what I want to touch on. I know there are some areas of compliance that fall within asset management and development as well, which are in the papers. And again, we continue to meet those compliance requirements in terms of those areas as well. So yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Just before we continue, can I just ask Councillor Khaled if she has any declarations of interest this evening?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I'm apologies for my delay because I've got to wait for my son to come home from work to drop me off.
That's okay.
He was delayed.
Not a problem. Right, yes, sorry. Yeah, I got sidetracked a little bit there. Okay, so do we have any questions? If you do, please, because obviously it's quite a big report, nominate the page number for me, and then we can all go from there. I think they were waiting for you, Phil.
An initial overall comment: we have read, or some of us have read, the Social Housing Regulators report, and we shall no doubt be discussing that at a future meeting. What, if any, are the budget implications of that report? Because, as we know, it made pretty horrendous reading, and that report came after these budget papers came out. So, are any additional costs going to be contained within existing budgets, or is there going to be an extra provision? And I heard the comments about how wonderful Homes England think we are. is that likely to have been changed at all and affect any grant monies as a result of that report? If I can then go on, Chairman, to page 21, and we look there at the indicator overall satisfaction with the service provided. We don't appear to be particularly ambitious going forward in that target. I accept it's an improvement on what was achieved in 23-24, but we're still only aiming for a target of 4 out of 5 to be satisfied. Now, to my mind, 1 in 5 level of dissatisfaction is simply not good enough. I know that there will always be cases where things go wrong, people are dissatisfied. That's the nature of any organisation. But to have a target where you are expecting 1 in 5 to be dissatisfied, to me, is not a particularly satisfactory state of affairs. And when we talk about ambition, the average relet time, again, there has been some...
page, Philip?
Page 25.
Thank you.
There has been some significant improvement, and it would have been difficult not to have got an improvement on the figures that were there. You'd have had to have been incompetent at a seriously high level. The target for 26-27 is 28 days, yet the target for 25-26, the current year, is 20 days. So we are setting a target that is worse than the target this year. Now, I don't know what we've achieved this year. At 24-25, we only achieved 51 days, and clearly we're not at the end of the year yet, so we won't get a definitive figure until then, but we must have some idea. But again, I find it bizarre that we're setting a worse target going forward than we set for the current year. It may be that we've not been able to achieve that 20 days, and it's nearer 20 days. So I think it would be useful to have some explanation there. I'd just like an explanation, thanks, on page 35, Chairman. Premises costs are going up by £37,000, which seems a fairly significant increase. I don't know. I'd like some unpacking of that, please. And going over to page 36, we come back to the things we were discussing last night and was a source of conversation before the meeting. On page 36, we've got recharges again. Now, this is a theme throughout all of these budget papers, that we're getting recharges that appear to be going up. Now, that money is being taken out. Where's it all going to? Is it in Mr. Payne's pocket? I mean, have we got pound notes? I'm showing my age now, haven't we? £5 notes. You know, where's it all going? I'd certainly like to know. On page 37, repairs and maintenance, we've got a revised estimate of 5.6 million, but a base budget of only 5.5 million, 5.577, I accept. Again, it seems a little bit strange that with inflation and repairs and maintenance, and I would have thought the cost of materials is going to be going up, in some cases significantly, yet we are budgeting for spending less this coming year, this next financial year, than we have done this year? Is it because the housing stock is in such wonderful condition, all the repairs have been done, and we're not going to be spending anywhere near as much? But we are going to have much more supervision and management, because the budget there on page 37, the second one down, has gone up from just under 3,700,000 to 3.8 million. And judging from that report, we need a lot more supervision. Now, I'd like an explanation on page 38, Chairman, please, if I might. Service area expenses. We've got a vacancy saving for the HRA, and it's been increased by £200,000. What's the base figure anyway that's been increased by 200,000? Now, 200,000 seems to me to be a huge amount to be increasing in terms of vacancy. Are we anticipating a large number of staff leaving and not being replaced to try and save money? And if we were 200,000 under our original estimate for this year, why were we? Because I think that, unless I've misread this, that we're basing this increase 200,000 to recognise the larger than forecast savings during the year. So could I have that unpicked a little bit more, please, if you wouldn't mind? Page 40. Now, this is interesting. Transport costs have increased due to increases in fleet maintenance costs. Well, I understand that. Is there any specific reason, or is it just a general increase? We seem to see an increase there, but not when it comes to building and maintenance. And there's been a net decrease in supplies and services costs, which is primarily due to a 20,000 increase in the regulator of social housing fees. Well, that'll come as no great surprise. 20,000 is on the conservative side, I would have thought, with a small c. We've got a net decrease in supplies and services. It says costs, which are primarily due to a £20,000 increase, costs associated with home ownership services increasing, insurance premium increasing. So I presume the balance is coming from the fact that housing repair voids are being capitalised, which seems an odd thing to do. If that is the case, it talks about it's been moved to the capital programme. I would have thought voids were and any repairs due to a property becoming void would have been out of revenue, but that's not what it says. And decreases in housing repairs materials. Now, I find that strange that fleet maintenance costs increase, which you would expect because there's a background of inflation, yet housing repairs materials are decreasing. Now, why? I would like to know that. Is that it? Oh, I don't think so. Surely not.
It's on that one.
Okay, I'm told that's it. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Stephen, you had a question.
Yeah, I've got a couple of points actually.
You okay doing it this way, taking note and catching up with them? I know people prefer it a different way.
So, Councillor Owen, I was a bit confused really about the void rent loss in that for 25-26 there's 100,000 increase, yet the average relet time is 20 days and the average relet time is 40 days. So when you compare that to 24-25, the number of days is really good, yet the costs have gone up. So once again, I think that needs a bit of explanation, to be honest. I suspect it might be that the 20 days and the 40 days might be wrong, don't know. That was page 25. So if we go to page 32, reduced rent loss due to improvement in void processes. What sort of improvements are these? Why can't they not be implemented now and only come into place next year? And then I think another point was just a bit of clarification, really. In that this page 35, hostel accommodation. So bed and breakfast is expected to reduce. Then I realised that I've probably got hostel accommodation and bed and breakfast a bit confused. So I'd just quite like some explanation of the hostel services that we provide, and then when those are full, do they go to then bed and breakfast or whatever? So just some explanation on that. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Dunheimer. If you cast your mind back quite a way when Councillor Cullen and Councillor, my wife, Councillor Barbacar, were chair and vice chair of housing, the void time was far, far higher than it is now. And a lot of work was undertaken at that time with officers to actually bring it down to what it is now. You do, it's really a weighing up game, isn't it? Because you either get it right, and some of our houses are left in an absolutely terrible state when people vacate them. You either put it right totally, which takes a long time, or you put new people into a house that really shouldn't be putting them in because it's not fit to live in. There's a balance there, isn't there?
Yeah.
But having said that, we have substantially brought down the time that it actually takes to actually turn this situation around. So, and that is down to the actions of officers with regards to that. I thought this report would come up. Of course, this is a very new thing. It'll be interesting to see what the outcomes are when they start inspecting people like Nottingham City and Derby City and see what the outcomes of they are. It's how you treat these reports, isn't it? If you treat it as an opportunity to put things that they're saying are wrong, then that's fine. I have to say, some of the things, I've just looked at it now. Fire safety, lack of clarity about the length of time fire safety actions have been open, and as well as a lack of evidence of mitigations in place while these actions remain outstanding. Well, I can tell you, Bexhill Court, which is in my ward, it was spotted quite early that it was actually deficit, and things were put in place there, but the cost of putting it right, and it has to be put right, is phenomenal.
Steve,
That leads me on to the next one.
can I just stop you there?
Yeah.
Can we say that for when we have the cabinet meeting? I think it's just
that's
I'd rather get the budget side of it.
Yeah,
But I
okay.
appreciate what you're saying.
What I'm saying is, and diverse needs, not understanding the diverse needs of tenants. Well, I think officers do. It's having the stock to be able to do it with, but that's another matter. These all impact the budget, and we all know that there's there's a limited amount of budget to go around, and it's a question of prioritising that budget. And looking at this and looking at the figures that we've presented, it's what we used to say in the bank: words and figures differ. I see, a while ago when I first became a councillor, my number one case workload was housing. It's no longer my number one case workload. And I think we should bear that in mind before we start throwing things around about our officers and staff not doing their duty properly, because they do.
Thank you. So, if we want any more questions, we'll go to the answers for the ones we've already done. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll maybe pick up some of the ones in terms of budget, and again, happy for my colleagues to jump in and also then talk about. So yeah, if I can just go through. It is. Oh, look at that. I could sing a song with this one. Fantastic. Right, back in the room. So yeah, page 35 on the Housing General Fund budgets. Councillor Owen picked up about the sort of uplifting premises cost as one of the questions sort of asked. And again, I think the majority of that is linked to hostel accommodation that's shown on page 36 in terms of repairs and maintenance and utility costs. Again, recharges were mentioned again and again, similar to the comment last night. Again, it is moving costs around the organisations based on where support is provided from the support services. There has been a review of the process this year and looking at timesheets and making sure timesheets and time allocations to make sure they're accurate in terms of where work's done. Whenever we do this, it does create some variations, but overall, the net effect is nil across the organisation. But again, we'll keep that under review and just make sure that costs, particularly costs that end up coming forward to the HRA, are accurate. If I can, moving on to the housing revenue account on page 37. Again, I think as an overall view, and again, colleagues may come in separately. In terms of budget implications, I think Councillor Carr picked up the word about sort of prioritising. The budgets we have in front of us tonight as presented show, the revenue costs of the HRA, a sizable capital programme in terms of meeting our sort of compliance and modernisation. And I certainly know, Rachel and Darren will be working hard to sort of make sure that budget is prioritised. And any cost implications that come forward, they'll come forward through Cabinet. And I know that Cabinet have got a report coming up in terms of a February report, a February Cabinet for the inspection outcome. So, you'll see further through there. A couple of other specific questions. In terms of the vacancy rate, as a council, we've had a vacancy rate budget on general fund for many years now and a target. And in recent years, we've introduced one on the HRA to reflect the fact that there are vacancies in the establishment during the year. We do have turnover, we do have vacant posts, and the vacancy rate target really is a reflection on the more likely outcome and more likely forecasted outcome for the spend on the HRA. Progress this year to date is currently showing, we have already, I think we've already hit about 450,000 saving on employee vacancies this year to date. So we thought we'd take the opportunity at this stage to revise the budget, and still expect to, we'll still achieve that budget in the year. Another point made about sort of repairs and maintenance, and obviously repairs and maintenance costs going down. Absolutely, it's in respect of capitalising some housing repair costs. We've looked at the way, we have looked at the way repair costs are working, in particular with voids, and there are some void properties that generate repair costs that are above levels that would allow it to be capitalised under sort of accounting arrangements. And this provides a more sort of cost-effective way of financing that then through the capital programme, because again, we've already got that budget there within the capital programme as well. So, to carefully manage the financial position on the HRA, we've taken the opportunity to move some of those historical revenue costs that historically, repair costs that historically we've pushed through revenue. We've taken the decision to capitalise those. And again, there was, there's reference there about a decrease in material costs, and again, it's purely based on sort of forecasted demand and looking at what we've utilised in previous years, and there's obviously an opportunity there just to bring the budget more in line with expected outturn rather than keep the base in at the level it was. I think from a budget perspective, I think that covers the questions. Do you want to comment on that?
I asked the question overall about the.
Yes, it's good to Rachel.
Oh, right, okay.
I was just going to add a couple of points to what you said, and then if we haven't covered it, we can pick it back up again. Repairs and maintenance, obviously, we mentioned about sort of the approach of the capital and revenue, and the fact that we've looked at that. But there are sort of genuinely some reductions that we have been able to make this year through work we've done through the modernisations programme. Boilers is a good example of that. Over the last few years, we've had quite a few boilers that were towards the end of their life, and as people will know at that point, that's where the more call outs come, more parts come, and the direct cost of that and the labour cost of that. We've had a extensive boiler replacement programme over the last few years, which has meant that the majority of our stock have newer boilers within them, and that's just one example. There is a number of examples of where we have replaced items, which mean actually the costs for parts are a lot less. Also, something that we haven't got at all this year that we were dealing with this time last year was we still had a bit of a backlog, and we still had some of those repairs that we were catching up on. Now we're fully caught up, we don't have any backlog at all, so we're not also trying to fund repairs that we're carrying over from the previous year either. Just to pick up about the regulator of social housing fees, just to clarify, that isn't related at all to the inspection that's just taken place. We have a cost per property that we have to pay each year for their services. That was £31,000 this year, and that has almost doubled. So there needs an increase of £20,000, but that is purely paying for us being a member of that scheme, similar to the cost that we have per property for the Housing Ombudsman. And finally, just to clarify one thing around the hostel accommodation, I know there was a comment made around that. It's probably a strangely named budget because actually it relates to the temporary accommodation we own ourselves. So we have 18 units of temporary accommodation that we own ourselves, and part of the increase those costs is the increase in cost in running them, particularly the utility costs. Because we try and use B&B as little as possible, and we're doing a lot of work around our processes to do that. Often we have people move out in the morning and somebody else move in the afternoon. It does mean that our own temporary accommodation is full the majority of the time, so all our utility costs that are associated with that have increased, because utility costs have increased, but also our approach to using it's increased as well. So that's where some of the increase in that, but just thought it was worth a clarification because it's not always obvious from what the budget's titled what that relates to.
Rachel, a couple of questions that were asked that I'd like clarification on was the average relet time. How you're going up to 28?
Yeah. Do you want me to? I'd sort of separated them with budgets and performance. Is there anything else on budgets,
Right,
or do you want? Is that works, or do you want me to?
Yes, please carry on.
Yeah. Is there anything else in regards to the budget side of things before I pick up performance? No, okay. So yes, to pick up the average relet time, first of all, I'm not surprised at all that this has come up as a question, because the sort of approach isn't straightforward, both in regards to the average relet time and the void rent loss. So not to point out the obvious, but obviously the average relet time is an average across a whole year. So starting the 1st of April, then those properties will hit this next year. What we will have in regards to average relet time is properties that are currently void that haven't yet been been let. So I've talked a few times at Cabinet about the problems we've had this year with staffing. You know, our 4 officers that work within lettings, and for different reasons they all left last year. So I've had a brand new team come in, and although they are very good, unfortunately that has caused us some problems. And we don't have a manager of that team in work at the moment either. So that has led to a bit of a backlog, which means we're going to have a backlog, which means when some of the properties are let, even if they're let in April and May, we'll be counting that average relet time from the date that they were void for. So if they've been void for 100 days, you know, that's what we reported in April. Void rent loss is slightly different because we will only start counting the void rent loss from April. So what we will have is the average relet time could look much higher, because we're also accounting for things that are happening in a different financial year, where the void rent loss is only counting what is happening within that year. So there'll be interesting figures to track this year, because they will be showing 2 completely different things. As we mentioned, we have increased our target for average relet time this year. Whenever you look at targets, you know, it's about being aspirational but being realistic. And, you know, we know we've had a difficult year this year within the lettings team. And with the targets that we've given are targets that we think we can realistically hit this year, bearing in mind what I've just said around the fact of, obviously we're not expecting Q1 to be near target, but our aim is that by quarters 3 and 4 the average will have evened out over the years. It will be something, although it's not a critical success indicator, it'll be one that we're sort of closely monitoring this year. Moving on to overall satisfaction, I've mentioned about the sort of lack of ambition with our target being 79%. That would still put us within upper quartile. Upper quartile performance is 77.6, so we're aiming to be comfortably within that upper quartile. Also, what we do have with overall satisfaction, as we do with any of our tenant satisfaction measures, is people are given the option to be neutral, to not have an opinion on the matter. And what we do find, and what Acuity, who've done our surveys for the last 2 years, have said they found with quite a few people, you know, organisations, and we're not in isolation here, is it's not that people are, if they're not saying they're satisfied or saying they're dissatisfied. We get a lot of people who also say that who don't answer the question, don't give an opinion on the matter, which does affect our figures. But we're aiming to be top quartile, and that's where we want to be with that indicator. In regards to those comments, also sort of picking up around the sort of void processes and the savings from them, and implementing, where we can implement them now. Just really to clarify, that is the savings that we're expecting from next year compared to this year, by all the improvements that we've put in with the new lettings team. So these things are already being implemented. It's just they will be fully implemented, and that's what we're expecting to get back from those changes we've made with having a brand new team in this year. That's everything on my list. Have I missed anything? I mean, there's a few bits I think for Darren around the budget for fireworks and Homes England grant money.
Yeah.
But that was everything I had noted.
On page 42, the rent increase of 4.8%, which is in line with government guidelines. Where does that leave us in comparison to our peers locally in their rents?
I don't know at the moment, because I'm not sure what the decisions have been made about what everybody's increasing their rents for, although I am expecting that everybody will increase it by the 4.8% that they can, that's the maximum, so it will still put us in the same position we are at the moment, sort of being the lowest rents locally.
Sorry, somebody stole me the thing. So, any more questions? Okay then, so the committee is asked to recommend the Cabinet approves the housing business plan. I'd like to propose it. Second, all those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Okay, so we now move on to agenda item number 6, which is business growth, business plans and financial estimates. And I believe Martin will be leading on that one as well.
Thank you, Chair. I'll certainly kick off with it. Again, similar format to the previous report, this time looking at our priority area of business growth. We're joined this evening on the business plans by Ryan Dawson as Assistant Director of Planning and Economic Development, and Jonathan Little, who's our Head of Service in Economic Development, who will take you through the business plan. Just quickly moving on to sort of Appendix 2A, brings the revenue budgets, summary revenue budgets for this priority area, and the changes between the 2 years are listed there. Appendix 2B is the capital programme for the year. We've left Stapleford Townsdeal and Kimberley Means Business on there as place markers, really. We've got budgets in this financial year which are being used towards the delivery of those respective programmes. We are expecting, they're not going to be fully utilised by year end. So again, these are left in there as a place marker for when budgets roll forward to match the external funding that we received. And then Appendix 2C, there's a small number of fees and charges there for you to consider this evening. But again, I'll look to bring in Ryan in the first instance, and then Jonathan to talk you through the business plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Martin. Essentially, with regards to, I'll talk around it a little bit, and then Jonathan come in a minute. There's been tweaks to a few of the targets with some of the key indicators, largely just to be a bit more realistic. I think the important thing to note in all of the areas is we're above the national targets by quite a way, whether that's occupancy or planning application determination rates. We're above where we need to be, and there's quite a gap, which we're happy with. You may note there's a tweak in terms of the major plan applications within agreed timescales. Again, it's just to be a bit more pragmatic in where the targets are going to align. Some of the other targets lower down, it's more updates on where things have happened with regards to neighbourhood plans and with regards to deliveries of the regeneration projects. As the Deputy Secretary alluded to already, a lot of the projects with regards to the economic development team, with regards to Kimberley Means Business and Stapleford Townsdeal, are coming to essentially the business end of the projects and delivery end, so the finances reflect that a bit. I'm happy to answer any questions on anything raised, and like Jonathan come in a little bit, so anything to add to that. But generally speaking, it's quite a good rosy picture, I would say, and we're very happy so far with the updates. Thank you.
No, nothing really major to add. We continue to look for and attract funding from other external bodies, and we would anticipate further regeneration funding coming in across the end of this financial year and next financial year as well.
Any questions? No? Philip?
Yeah, observations as much as questions, I suppose. On page 65, right at the bottom there, continue to explore opportunities for markets and retail events across the borough. And delivery of all these markets is to commence late 2025. It'd be useful to have some more information on that. And I have requested previously the budgets that are applied, the amount of money that is being spent on all of this particular area of work, and how many extra stalls it's resulted in. And I would like that. I appreciate you can't give me that tonight, but I would like that. Can I pick up on page 71, and it also really applies to page 77. We've got there the craft workshops, and I can see that we've got a capital cost of £65,000. And on page 71, we've got the revenue budget there of only 26,700. Presumably that figure of 26,700 includes any interest charges on any capital borrowing for the capital programme, but presumably is that the net cost after we've collected in rents? Yes. I'd like to know how much rent we do get in for those, please. And then on page 73, we've got there in the service area, car parks, cost budgets relating to staffing, repairs and maintenance. We're getting a reduction there of nearly £50,000. I should imagine in part that's because we've got the lights switched off on the car park out here, rather than anything else, and they've been out for quite some time. But I would like an up-to-date information on the income expenditure for the council's car parks, and also the usage of our car parks. And I would certainly like a comparison between now and when we last offered the free time for parking in our car parks. If I might, please, Chairman. And I think that's everything for that.
Yes, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got questions about the appeals on page 62 and 63. I was wondering if you could give us a bit more information about how the targets are set, when the targets have been, that 10% has been exceeded by quite a lot in previous years. And also it says that appeals allowed against refusals have been, again, quite high and with low targets. Is there any kind of cost implications of those refusals by planning committee which were then subsequently appealed and allowed, and what they were?
Anybody else have any questions? Steve?
Just the the free for 3 hours car park in December was very successful. Certainly better than making it free all the time, which just bulked the, made it impossible to park. Have we had any idea? I only want an estimate because I realise you won't have definitive figures yet. How much giving 3 hours for free during December actually cost in reduced revenue?
Do you want to lead with that? Or?
I will kick off with that, but also sort of bring in colleagues as well. In fact, I think while we're there, I've got Greg Dwyer this evening who sort of heads up our car parking services. We've had some information, haven't we, today?
Yeah,
hot off the press, as it were, in terms.
Yeah,
of
that's right. So, in terms of
I was going to ask the question.
So yeah, in terms of success of the car parking initiative in December to provide free car parking for the first 3 hours, it had deterred the commuters who were taking advantage of the all-day parking from last year. So that was good. In terms of utilisation, we had a total of 30,500 people utilise our car parks across the borough, which was quite successful when our average is around 29,500. And in terms of the income, we did still gain some income of 22.5k net for December for anything above the free for 3 hours. So in a whole, I think it was quite a reasonable balance between free car parking and utilisation.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, just in terms of the other questions, certainly in respect to the budget, and then I'll look to bring Ryan in with the business plans. Noted about the craft workshops. Obviously, the cost of the capital works when they come in will work their way through to that budget through capital charges. But we'll come back to you in terms of how much rent is generated. I've not got that information to hand, but be happy to share. But it is very much a net position that's shown on the revenue budgets there. Of course, we can, through normal sort of reporting, we can bring sort of updates on terms of income and expenditure on car parks, and certainly we do annual reports on that one that we do report on. In terms of the changes, Councillor Owen referred to sort of cost changes related to car parking, a reduction of 49,000. We did have a look at our establishment, didn't we, in terms of the way it's sort of managed and delivered, which I think generated a saving in terms of the budget. But certainly, again, one of these sort of things where it is then split across different sections. I don't think it resulted in a net change in terms of the overall establishment, but I think we utilised some management time there to look at other things. And I think that has generated a saving in this particular service area. I think so. Again, we can confirm, but I recall that being the difference between this year's base estimate and next year's revised. Ryan, can I bring you in terms of the business plan questions, please?
Yeah, thank you, Martin. I'll deal with the appeals one, and I'll delegate to Jonathan for the markets one. With regards to markets generally, I think the issue with a lot of economic work in the last year or two has been because it's been such much more of a delivery vehicle. Business as usual work has not been carried out quite at the same level, purely because there's so much money to spend and try and deliver it in such a short timescales. It's had an impact on some of the resources. With regards to the appeals question that was asked, national targets we try and aim, we don't always achieve them. They're a bit unrealistic, to be fair. I'll deal with the first in order, if I may. Appeals allowed against refusals, which is delegate decisions or committee decisions, in line with officer recommendation. So essentially what that indicator is if you refuse something that's in line with adopted policy, theoretically you shouldn't lose that at appeal. Now the targets were set, and then in my opinion the government's been a little bit more liberal with allowing a lot of developments in recent years, which is reflected on the outcomes there. But and local plans, as we all know, take several years to update and overcome. So the target we set very low, because theoretically speaking, if the planners and the committee or not all align with regards to the planning policies, it should be the case that we win those refusals. The figures don't necessarily back that up, but that should be the case. As you're aware, in the last year or so, the housing figures have been increased significantly in terms of what we need to deliver, but that was outlined in the housing business plan for this one. And as a result, a lot of dwellings or developments that previously would have been refused have been allowed, which could be why it's reflected in some of the figures. With regards to the appeals allowed against refusals, again, we try and set this lower, but there's always a pinch point here between agreeing with the planners with all respect and then members allowing to deal with local issues with all respect and the balance between the two. So that one's always harder to achieve. Because those of you who've been on planning committee, there's always a lot of local issues which are relevant to the area, which might not be reflected nationally. I think there was a comment on costs as well. Recently, we've not actually received anything on costs in the last, 6 to 8 months or so. I do report these to the planning committee in terms of what costs we've had with appeals and do an annual report on it as well. So it's not a target. The reason I don't have it as a target is because the cost implications can be very large or very small depending on the scale of the scheme. So that's why they're not reported here. But there's no issues recently. Generally speaking, I think we've defended the cost very well over the last few years. And I'll go to Jonathan, the markets question, if that's okay.
I believe we've actually been preparing some with the group accountant for our service, preparing an answer to Councillor Owen's request for more detailed information. I think we'll be in a position to share that with Councillor Owen in the next couple of days or so. As Ryan alluded to, it is a tough time for markets, and we are, I would suggest, more focused on the delivery of the large capital projects in economic development and regeneration, as again Ryan alluded to. But town centres are really, really important to the borough. They're sort of beating heart of our economies, and how we take that forward. We've got some great ideas in the economic development strategy, which is one of our targets. And once we've got a little bit more human capacity, we'll turn shoulder to the wheel, and I'm sure delivery will improve.
Thank you very much. Could you send that information through to me as well, please, if you don't mind? Milan, you wanted to come in?
Just on page 71, Chair, point of clarification. On the planning policy, you'll notice the figure of base budget for this year, 744,000. Today, the government's announced additional funding nationally. It provides £29 million to local authorities in production of local plans and others. The letter I've received this afternoon from the Secretary of State is increasing that figure by a further £14 million. So obviously that will be reflected in the budget later on when we know exactly what we applied for. I forwarded it to the relevant officers this afternoon, and consequently, Chair, I expect that base budget to be offset by the additional grant that we can apply for.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Stephen.
Yeah, can I just make the point regarding markets? When we did the scrutiny report, Councillor Gillowen and myself looked at it, and we came to the decision that roughly the markets was pretty much self-financing, really. So I expect that to be reflected in the figures as well. Well, just go back on.
We'll get the figures anyway. That'll prove the point to us. It has. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Any more questions? Okay, so the committee is asked to recommend that the Cabinet approves the business growth business plans. I'll propose it.
I'll second it.
All those in favour? Against? And abstentions? Thank you very much. So we now move on to agenda item 7, which is the resource of support service areas, business plans and financial estimates. And I shall pass you to Martin again.
Thank you, Chair. I'll lead in with this one. So for members this evening, there's 3 business plans to consider. One relating to resources, and again, both myself and I've got a number of colleagues in the room this evening to support who've assisted and supported with putting these business plans together. I've got a business plan there for revenues and benefits, customer services, and we've got Phil Sudlow with us this evening who will talk a little bit around that. And then also a business plan on ICT and business transformation, and Greg Dwyer has joined us this evening as well. I'm pleased that he's joined us this evening, and again we'll present that. Again, similarly, in Appendix 2A, we have the revenue budget on the resources, the support services areas, and the changes between the budgets there between the 2 years. There's an element in the capital programmes provided. Again, some works on external works on the council offices has been proposed, but also our ICT programme as well, which is listed there for you. And then a small element of fees and charges to review. I think to talk first about the resources business plan, obviously there's elements of finance, HR, legal, democratic services, health and safety, amongst others, estates as well included in there. In terms of the indicators, the critical success indicators and the key performance indicators that we're showing this evening, again, they're well established, they're well embedded, and certainly provide good information in terms of direction of travel, and then helping us to set targets and improvements for future years. There's a list of key actions and improvements are listed within the business plan as well, and again, some elements are items that roll forward in different years, but also some new things there as well. You know, for example, in terms of sort of finance services, in producing the draft accounts, doing business plan reviews of the HRA, upgrading financial systems and the like as well. But also, like I say, lots across the different support areas. So again, I'll bring in Phil to start with to talk about revenues, benefits and customer services, and then Greg to talk about business transformation, and we'll take any comments and questions after that, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Martin. Is the revenues and benefits business plan is pretty static. The benefits side of things is reducing over the last few years due to the introduction of universal credit. So there's the indicators and the changes being required of us is reducing significantly, and council tax has remained
pretty much static since day one, to be honest with you, with very minor changes. So there's not huge amounts of adaptations from previous iterations of this report. One of the things I will just draw members' attention to is there's a couple of aspects where we've adapted the indicator in respect of the self-service payments transactions to bring in not just the online payments, but those that are using what we call the ATP, so the automated telephone payments. It's an indication that, you know, where no human hand has to deal with it, so it's an indicator of proper self-service, so to speak, and that's on page 102. And then on page 103, just to provide a bit more transparency to the customer services team, we've introduced the indicator in respect of calls made to the contact centre that are abandoned, and the indicator of trying to remain under 10% on those calls. But other than that, the rest of the report's pretty consistent with previous years. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of ICT and business transformation, the KPIs are standard. No real changes, significant changes there. But in terms of our programme moving forward, we're keen on ensuring that we invest in ICT security and compliance, replacement and development and digitalisation. So trying to help more provide self-service, mobile facilities within the council to allow people to operate more efficiently using digital services, and multifunctional devices, printing devices across the organisation, and how we can reduce and become more paper-light to reduce our overall costs and carbon footprint. So they're the main highlights for the coming year.
Thank you very much. So, any questions? Stephen?
Yeah, my question's on page 89 really, which is the industrial unit tenants who rent arrears. So my question really is, why is there a KPI for the retail, for the industrial units, but not the retail units? And plus, like best practice or normal practice is to look at how smart we are getting the cash in, is looking at debtor days. So I just wonder why we don't use debtor days, which is the sort of like industry standard for looking at your debtors.
Okay. Any other questions? Philip?
Yeah, on page 84, working days lost due to sickness. We don't seem to be being particularly ambitious in trying to drive that figure down. We've got comparators for the East Midlands, but they're 4 or 5 years out of date, so I don't think that they are particularly meaningful, except that the lowest recorded from one council was 6.20 days lost. So I would have thought that as far as our target is concerned, we ought to be looking to move it in that direction. And I find the final sentence, should any of the targets be met, targets for future years will be reassessed to ensure continuous improvement. So I assume it means that if we actually make the 7.5, 2.5 and 5, we'll then decide that we're going to reduce the target by whatever amount, which I have to say seems a bit of a bizarre way of doing it, to be honest, but still. I do feel that we're not as ambitious, and this has been going on for some time. There has been a decrease in the number of days lost through ill health, but it's not coming down enough. On page 87, I was just interested here at the bottom. We've got stage 2 complaints. We achieved 48%. Not quite sure what the figure means, to be honest, in terms of 48%, but the target for future years is 0. So I find that a bit odd. I'm not going to go through all of the reports that we've got on residents who are satisfied or very satisfied. I've rehearsed those arguments before. It makes pretty poor reading, I have to say, but there we are. We are used to that, are we not? What else was I going to comment on? 112. I've got a comment, I think. No, I haven't. 114. Mr. Dwyer, mentioned the multifunctional print device and is going to reduce the amount of printing that goes on. Well, I could make one immediate suggestion. This rubbish we get at the front of every committee paper, every paper produced for councillors about declarations of interest. That could save 100,000 a year, I would think. So that's a start. Well, you are very sad. I always thought that if you've learnt it. But it really is.
Can I look to take that one forward on your behalf? And I'll do it through Jeremy and GMT, and we'll see.
Quite frankly, as elected members, if we say we don't, I can't because I'm not in charge. Otherwise, it would have gone a long time ago. It would have gone a long time ago, I can assure you. But as elected members, if we're saying we don't want it, then we say we don't want it, and it doesn't appear. It's as simple as that.
I think on that one, if there's universal support on that, I'll work with Jeremy. We'll look for a better way to do that, and
you will. You'll
achieve
it. But what I am concerned about, it's a song and a dance to get that nonsense stopped. But I trust there's no indication in your comments that you're going to stop producing printed copies for members for meetings. And that we're expected to look at everything online, because quite frankly, I'm not prepared to. And in fact, I thought we had a legal requirement. There was a legal requirement to provide us with printed copies, but that's beside the point. But a general point on all this IT stuff. We've got local government review at the moment. So surely we didn't ought to be planning to spend money on this sort of thing until we know what is happening over local government review. It may be that this lousy government sees sense. I mean, how many U-turns are they at now? 55, is it? So we can only hope that they do yet another U-turn and say we're not going to put Broxtowe in with the city.
Point made on the finance, though. So
yes,
we'll move on.
But I am making the point that should we be budgeting for this sort of thing whilst we're it's all up in the air, because it could be money that is wasted.
Fair point.
And that's it.
Okay. Yeah. You want to go?
Yeah.
Unless anybody other questions have come up. Showing that note.
We'll have it again. I'll look at colleagues as well.
Steve's
sorry, Steve.
Giving too much time.
The thing is, we don't know, do we, whether this is going to happen or not.
Yes.
It could. The timescales that are in there at the moment are just undeliverable, in my opinion. So we've got to carry on as though we're going to be here in 10 years, in my opinion. But can I just say on a general point, I don't mind governments doing U-turns when they're wrong.
I don't. Okay then. That's you, Martin.
To be fair, I think in terms of the question about the investment in our ICT, again, I'll let Greg come in later with it. But I think Councillor Carr makes an excellent point there. Again, we're staying ahead of the game. We're making sure that we're up to date and efficient with the way we're working. Again, I think larger contracts, certainly as we move forward, once we get further information come back from the government in terms of local government reorganisation, obviously we'll start to look at our contracts, particularly the larger contracts, the longer term stuff as well, and we'll no doubt be aligning those then with other councils across the area. But again, that's one for later down the line. No. Just as a couple, if Councillor Hunt?
Oh, sorry, Hannah.
Carry on.
Okay. Again, just to run through, and again, I'll bring in colleagues as well. I think going in page order, we picked up on sickness days Councillor raised a question about sort of sickness days in terms of targets. Again, I think it's clear we can see sort of direction of travel there is positive. There's a, within our sort of attendance management arrangements, we manage sickness well. We continue to have good outturn. There is a point made about whether, sort of future targets and going forward in terms of whether we, within the face of this report, we should be showing improvements. But certainly target days in terms of 7.5 days, I think is very comparable with the sector and other businesses as well. It's very good.
Can I ask you a question on that, if you don't mind? So, on your sickness days, I know that council is slightly different. If somebody was to feel unwell to come to work, can they then revert to working from home with the agile working policy? So therefore, it doesn't become a sick day?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that bit again, obviously in conversation with the manager and business need, if that's available, it is and that is one of the ways. Again, digressing slightly, but that's where agile working. One of the real benefits is that. But again, get the point. It's the comment within the business plan about revising future targets. Should we, should the direction of travel, continue to meet targets? I think is a fair one, and we'll look at that again, depending on where the outcome is this year. I'll bring Jeremy in terms of the stage 2 complaint shortly, and Darren as well in terms of the tenant arrears on industrial units and commercial. Noting the comment about debtor days, again, something we can look at. It's not something we've used in the past in terms of managing our sort of arrears, but something you've raised a good point. Yeah, so again, we'll look at that and see if we can refine the target accordingly. But we do get regular reports into management team in terms of performance on arrears as well, and I've got one coming forward in the next couple of weeks as well. So it is something that we're carefully monitoring. Was there anything else? I'll refer to Jeremy then in terms of the complaint question, if that's okay.
Thanks, Martin. So stage 1 of the complaints process is dealt with by the service area themselves. Stage 2 is dealt with by the complaints and compliments officer. So the 48% there shows that almost half of the investigations carried out by the complaints and compliments officer, they uphold the point of view of the complainant, if you like. So I'd like to think that shows some sort of independence between the complaints officer and the service area themselves. Also, just to add that the ombudsman very rarely disagrees with the findings of the complaints and compliments officer as well. We have around it, and it's rising, I have to say, 100 or so stage 2 complaints a year. And there's just a very small percentage that the ombudsman would disagree with the complaints officer's findings on that.
Yeah, just in terms of, I've sat at overview and scrutiny panels here in the past, and obviously we've taken some criticism in terms of the level of arrears, in terms of the commercial stock, and that's been taken on board in terms of both how we deal, certainly with retail tenants, and those in the room who have dealt with retailers will know in the past that if you don't push them and you want a little bit more aggressive, they tend to string you out a little bit. And I think one of the things that we as a team have got better at, and certainly reduced some arrears numbers across the last few months, it's shown that we're being a little bit more aggressive. Obviously, we've got issues around the ongoing Wilco's situation, which we can't do a great deal about at this moment in time. But I think certainly getting on top of some of the other retailers who have possibly let things slip a little bit has improved massively. We've got everybody now on a set payment plan. And we're looking as an authority to support some of our smaller retailers who, it's, at the end of the day, it's not in anyone's interest to try and force people out of retail, the retail environment, which is often a competitive environment anyway. And I'm really pleased to say that in the Beeston Town Centre at the moment, we're fully stocked in terms of units and retailers, and it's a very healthy situation for Beeston as a town in particular. So in terms of our industrial units, They remain very popular. We're bringing more of them online, and again, we've got good relationships with all of those tenants. We have got the issue at High Hazels, which continues to be a problem for us, and that'll be something that'll be addressed. Unfortunately, we've got to deal with the county council on that particular matter, so we are having a little bit of problems with that at the moment. But that is the one kind of issue we've got at the moment around the industrial units. Thank you. Yes, that's fine. Yes, go.
Thanks for that, Darren. I mean, particularly the level of arrears that was my concern, really. It was just my concern was that it didn't seem to have a KPI reflected for retail, yet we did for industrial units, which just seemed a bit odd.
Yeah.
Because you're right, obviously it is a bit of an issue at the moment, but you don't have a target for it. And then I was also just questioning whether it was the most appropriate target.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, Anna, yes, you want to come in?
Thank you. Just reflecting on the sort of quest towards the more automation, AI and things like that that our world is bringing us, and just making sure we're not doing that to the exclusion of those in our community that are not able to engage with that for a whole host of reasons, and just ensuring we've got strategies in place for that. Thank you.
Do you want to go to?
Yeah, good to Greg.
Greg, do you want to come back in on your questions?
Yeah, no, I'll pick up on 3 comments now. That's a good comment on the last one. The comment on printing and particularly around the agenda, it's more about providing options. So people who want to digitalise and view the agendas digitally is something that we can make available. I was shocked to learn just how much it costs per year, over 10 grand just for printing paper for agendas. So no, it won't be excluding. People will still get their paper copied. In terms of digitalisation and investing in areas where it may not be suitable because of LGR, that is something that we are keen on being mindful of. There's a few initiatives that have been parked due to LGR, and it will all be part of business cases that are put forward to move forward with some of these initiatives to ensure that the investment up front will provide efficiencies in the long run. And in terms of artificial intelligence and excluding people, we're very mindful of that there is, you can't just digitalise everything, and that's the only way to access services. So it's always been a balance of ensuring we have more channels available for accessing council services as opposed to reducing them. So that would just be another part of being able to offer more services for those who can do digitalisation but also still keep services for the vulnerable.
Thank you very much. Phil, you'd like to come in, yeah?
Yeah, thank you. Just to kind of provide some reassurance for members more than anything, it's part of our customer services position is that anything that we develop and move people onto these online functionalities frees up availability for the customer services staff to provide those that really need that one-to-one on the phone or one-to-one at the reception area. So it's not that we're trying to move everybody on, it's just those that want to and can, here's that facility. Those that can't or don't want to still have the other options available to them.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Any more questions? Okay, so the committee is asked to recommend that the Cabinet approves the business plans for the sports service areas. I'd like to propose it. Second, thank you. All those in favour? Against? And abstentions? Thank you very much. Nearly there, nearly there. So, item 8 is the Cabinet programme. We went through this last night. Does anybody want to add anything to the Cabinet programme? No? Okay, so it's...
Yeah, the Cabinet Work Programme is some repetition. It wants refining that list just slightly.
Okay, thank you.
It's on twice, isn't it? Yeah.
That's just no. So, and same with the scrutiny programme. We went through that last night as well. We took some suggestions for that. Has anybody got anything they'd like to add for that future prep? Yes, Colin, your hand up. Let's see you back there, mate.
I'd like to have a look and revisit the asbestos around that is being used within residential areas and also within the council itself.
Okay, we'll bring that up to the next meeting. Helen?
I understand it's going to Cabinet in February, but I was wondering whether as an Overview and Scrutiny Committee, we should be looking at the report of the Regulator of Social Housing and how we're responding to that.
Yes, possibly. I think it needs to probably go to Cabinet first and see what comes out of it, and then if there's a suggestion to bring it to the Overview and Scrutiny to look at parts of it, then everything can be brought to Overview and Scrutiny. It's whether we take it on board or not. Stephen? No. Oh, I thought you're just holding your pen aloft. So we've got a few things, so see, we have to vote on that one, don't we?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I'm proposing is what it is. We will add things to it. Second, all those in favour? Against and abstentions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for 2 nights. Well done, everybody. And you're free to go home.
Thanks all.
Unless you've got meetings tomorrow, that is.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, not a problem, mate. No.